All right, welcome to the second and final HKS admissions secrets to admission success, part 2. Again, our goal here is to really provide you with a really broad overview and get in depth on a couple of key areas so that you really increase your chances of admission to the Kennedy School. Now, the Kennedy School does have informational sessions, many of them, so we highly recommend that you attend those. Also, so that you know, we're going to be providing this based on my experiences, my opinions, the opinions of Right Track. These are not the opinions of the school. We're not endorsed by the school. We're not affiliated with the school in any way. And it's always good and important to go and check out all this information and corroborate it for yourself to double check that you are doing the right thing and getting the right information that you need for your admission success. So without further ado, let's get into it because we got a ton to cover today. And I'll give you a little bit of a background of myself, actually, before we get started. So just again, in terms of my background, I went to the Kennedy School in 2016, graduated 2017 as a mid-career master's in public administration. I also received a fellowship from the Center for Public Leadership, which was a full scholarship for the program and a stipend and a housing allowance as well in terms of the stipend I received. So I was able to cover all my tuition and debt, as I spoke about in part 1 of this admissions series. After I graduated, I then went on to be on the selection committee for the fellowship that I received, as well as on the alumni council as a co-chair eventually for the alumni council, which represents the fellows from CPL. So very involved in the school, maintain my involvement because the Harvard network is really incredible. Despite having attended UCLA, Berkeley for law school, Cambridge for my first master's, Harvard really has an incredible network that really is such a great resource after graduation in terms of your career development and so forth. So a very important part of my own career trajectory in life, and that's why I feel since then, and as an admissions company, we've helped so many people apply to the Kennedy School as well as other graduate programs with a lot of success. Now, obviously, there is no guarantees. The Kennedy School is one of the most sought after programs, but that's why we're putting on these admissions workshops. And I don't want to kind of jump the gun, but I am fairly confident that I'm going to be publishing self-publishing a book on Harvard admissions, Kennedy School admissions to success, or what we're calling the mastery guide, that covers everything we're going to cover now, but going much more in depth, which I think you can use as a great resource for you as you go through the process of admissions. All right, so let's get into a very important part of it. What are the HKS application essays? Now, what we said in the first part is that we covered things like letters of recommendation, the resume, the optional statement. We also covered, what the Kennedy School is looking for in terms of the C's. In fact, I'm going to kind of zoom back so I can give you kind of like a little bit of an overview of that again for your records. So let's quickly cover this one more time, and then we'll jump back into the essays themselves. So here are the key elements of what the Kennedy School looks for. How do we know this? Because A, they have it on their website. Literally, they spell out what they're looking for. And B, recommenders receive a list of ratings of what the school is looking for as part of their entering class. And so when we kind of referenced all of that, we want to keep it in a way that you can remember. We came up with the 6 C's. Collaborative in terms of leadership, in terms of teamwork, in terms of working well with others, having a strong EQ as well as IQ, capable, your professional experiences, your personal experiences, those things that really can add value to the class, compassionate, a strong sense of empathy in terms of public service and how you demonstrated it, curiosity, especially in terms of your academic record and what you've done and how you show like an insatiable appetite to learn, that intellectual abilities and so forth, which is obviously very important to the school, especially given that it's an academic program and quite rigorous. Communicative, which are strong English proficiency. They want to see that in terms of oral proficiency and written proficiency, those strong communication skills. And finally, a commitment to your career goals, a commitment to public service, a commitment to HKS. And they really want to see that demonstrated in the essays. So as I kind of listed here, this is a good overview of what the Kennedy School is looking for. So it's great to kind of reverse engineer what you plan to do and what you want to do in terms of how you're going to be able to stand out as a candidate. So let's quickly kind of go through that. We've already covered all of this in part one, as we talked about, and we'll revisit it right now in part two. So these are the essays for the different programs. Now, note, these essays are liable to change. They're not always going to be the same. But what we want to do is focus on a couple of key areas within these essays, which we're going to cover in a little bit, and how to write them, what the strategy is, and so forth. But as you can see there, on average, every program of the master's program, there's the MPA, 2-year MPA, there's the MPP, 2-year MPP, which is the most popular. There's the MPAID, and then there's the mid-career Master's in Public Administration, the MPA as well. Each one of these, you'll see there's about 5 essays that you'll have to do. So it's very onerous, plus other short questions. So pretty much all programs will have to do the background statement and the biography statement. So make sure that you get those. Those are going to be, I believe, in your application from the online portal. You'll see that underneath the resume. So you got to fill that out. Don't neglect it. One's 300 words, one's 150 words. They're not to be confused. They're different. And again, make sure to check out online how to write that. And when I have the book complete, it will also provide you with a strategy of how to answer those questions. You've got the career essays. That's for the mid-careers. You've got their English language. If you did not attend a undergraduate in English, then I believe you have to write an English statement, language statement, as well as submit your TOEFL score. But you definitely double want to check that, because some people say, well, we don't even want to submit a TOEFL because we went to high school in English only speaking, and our university was English, or vice versa. Their high school was not in English, their college was, or their high school was, their college wasn't, or it was a hybrid. So you definitely want to have the opportunity to write about that in the English statement. You got the adversity statement, which covers almost all programs have to do it. For the MPID, you've got the international development statement. For the MPP, I believe you've got the MPA, you've got the JFK statement, which is really the equivalent, I believe, of the professional contribution. I think the professional contribution for the mid-career. You've got the perspectives essay, personal history essay, or what's also known as the diversity essay, which is across all, which probably leads you to believe that that's a very important essay that you want to make sure it stands out. You got your public policy essay. You've got your 2-year MPA essay, career goals for that one. So here you can just kind of get an overview of the different essays that you have to submit for the Kennedy School. And again, you could find this easily online. They do it so well in the Kennedy School, because they've got this blog, an admissions and financial aid blog, and all of this stuff is written out, as well as on their main page as well. All right. So now that we've told you what the different essays are going to be required, let's quickly do a little bit of a cheat sheet, because this is going to pop up, and this has kind of been our sauce, so to speak, at Right Track. What's really helped us be able to help students figure out what the best way is to structure and really create a beautiful story. I'll give you an example. We were recently working with a client who was writing his personal history essay. And what he ended up doing, which again is about diversity, he started literally listing things that he thought were and would make him a diverse candidate. So he's talking about his identity, then he talks about his professional, then he talks about some life experiences that he had, then he kind of throws in at the end how it's all going to tie back to the Kennedy School. We're going to speak a little bit about this. And that's not the way you write the essay. You don't want to throw everything at them and hope something sticks. The main thing here you really want to do is create a story to engage them. So the way that we restructured and helped the client do that essay was we started off with a story about his family and how they instilled values of open-mindedness and tolerance and travel, right? And then how that influenced their upbringing and how that influenced their life, and then how that made them, again, open-minded, tolerant, accepting of other cultures, have the insatiable curiosity to learn about other people, want to give back, want to kind of learn, and how they're going to add value to the Kennedy School. So you got to make it into a story. And so when we think about that, Here's how you want to do it. You want to start with the attention grabber. And in this case, when we were helping the client, we started off again with this family in a journey that they were taking. So that kind of pulled in the audience. So you want to kind of grab their attention. And I always say to them, when people are like, I still don't understand what that means, think about your life like a movie. Okay, guys, think about your life like a movie. What is that opening scene? How does it start? How do you pull in the audience as they're, chugging down popcorn and they're looking at the movie, they're looking at a movie of your life? How do you engage them so they don't kind of zone out and be like, this is really crap, and then skip to the next movie? So think about your life like a movie. What is the attention grabber? How are we going to pull them in? How are we going to engage them? And the ways that you do that usually is through a statistic, a profound statistic, through a quote, through a dialogue, through an action sequence, right? Think about those are the kind of ways that you want to engage them. And so the tension is definitely on the high side. Then you start developing your character, your background. Again, in that case, we talked about the guy whose father used to take them on trips. And then it pans back and it starts talking about his upbringing, what he felt and experienced on the trips as a person. So we start developing their character. Then we start developing the story. As we start learning more about the person and the thoughts and the values that they had, then we start talking about what they did in their lives. And here I say career, but I mean academic career, I mean professional career, almost kind of like, their life, their story, how they kind of started to progress, how those experiences influenced their life and the decisions they took. Then we reach a D, the direction, which way they want to go across that path. And in this case, the person could have said, I never really grappled with or cared much about diversity or whatever, and they decide to be close-minded. Obviously, nobody's going to say that. In his case, he said because of the upbringing that he had and the story that he had and so forth, he made a decision to really give back and support other people because of the experiences he had in terms of his sense of diversity. And that was the inflection point, right? So that's how we were talking about that personal history. But now let's kind of shape it around, and we're going to talk a little bit about this in the career goals essay. Because what you do here, and as a career goals essay asks, for example, with the mid-career program, and I'm sure the other programs and other master programs also ask this, is now that you've told us kind of that attention grabber, then who you are, then the career that you've had, then the direction, the decision you're making in terms of where you want to go in your career, in this example, how is the Kennedy School going to help you get there? Okay, now I have this random picture of Yoda right here, and you may be thinking to yourself, why the hell does he have a picture of Yoda? Well, the reason is, think about the education institution as a guide, right? As that person, that entity that's going to take you from point A to point B, that's going to get you from a dream to a reality. And that's what the Kennedy School seeks to do. It says, I've lived, I've done this, I've done that, but I've now reached a decision point where I really want to do this, but I can't do this without a master's in public administration or an MPP or an MPID or whatever it may be. And so therefore, your school is going to get me there. And the way that we do that is through CLAP, which we're going to discuss, which is community, location, academics, and personal. Once the school gets you into that direction, then you bring the essay back full circle, the finale that brings the attention grabber and makes that beautiful closing of the loop. This is the story arc, the most popular way of drafting any story. It's on an axiom of tension and development. Tension over time, right? So the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story. And this is kind of how you write it. So I want you to think about that very much as you go through your different essays. Now, obviously, not all aspects of this are going to be involved in every essay, given that there's 6 essays at the Kennedy School and they ask for very different prompts. But you're always thinking about a story that starts with an action. There's a development, there's a point of inflection, and then there's a resolution. All right. So as I said, think of your life like a movie. And then I put this TED thing here because I want you to think about what's the hook. What's the thing that really kind of keeps them engaged and that takeaway from that whole process itself? Okay, so this is the sauce. This is what we've been doing for applicants for 16 years, and most recently in the last 10 years for the Harvard Kennedy School. And it's worked like a charm because, again, this is how readers, people want to see action sequences, see the development of statements. What you don't want to see, and this is a very faux pas in terms of all of that, is you don't want to spend half the essay building up a story that has nothing to do with the prompt. You're just giving a ton of background information that has nothing to do with the prompt. That's a problem You do want to get to the prompt early enough so that they understand where you're going with this, providing the roadmap, and then going through the sequence to really engage them and keep them engaged and keep it memorable. All right. Let's start and use this roadmap for one of the most important essays. I'm using the career goals as the essay that we're going to lead with, but you could use the same concept for other essays that you have for the other programs. Well, let's use the mid-career program and this one. Submit a statement that discusses your career goals, as well as factors that will do to select the mid-career program as a means of furthering your personal and professional goals. Be specific as possible in describing how your expected course of study will enable you to build on your prior professional experiences and achieve those goals. Now, what do we have here? Submit a statement that discusses your career goals. So the first thing I want to highlight is career goals, okay? Too bad I don't have an underline, but here, career goals, the first thing that I want you to think about, as well as the factors that led you to select the master's in public administration. So now you're thinking about the factors. So you got your career goals, the factors that helped you select it in terms of as a means of furthering your personal and professional goals. So you've got your career goals and you've got the factors that you want the program to help you further those goals. You take them from point A to point B. Now, as a second part of that prompt, always think about they want you to be as specific as possible. So no generalities, no 50,000-foot view. Dig in, provide specifics in terms of how the course of study will help you build on your professional experiences. And that's really where we're talking about here, clap, okay? So again, we have the structure. We start with an attention grabber. We pull them in terms of your career background and your essay. Then we go into your background, what you've been doing, then what you've been doing in terms of your career. And here I wouldn't spend, honestly, probably more than about half the 500 words maximum up to these three sections: the attention grabber, the background, the career goals. Then I would spend the other half of the essay really talking about what you want to do, given what you've done and who you are, what you want to do in terms of the direction you plan to go. Maybe that will be another, let's say, 50 to 80 words. And then the rest of it, a third of the essay, will go into how the Kennedy School is going to get you there. All right. I didn't add finale because maybe you're going to probably run out of space. You only have 500 words, but really this is going to be the bulk of the essay, as in one of these sections. This is going to be the bulk. And then we talked about the community. So what are you going to be talking about? The community at Harvard. You're going to be speaking about the centers, the clinics, the concentrations, the courses. This is community. So this is going to be more about the student organizations, the journal, the student treks, the diversity on campus, really the campus, the community vibe of the Kennedy School, which is so tight knit, right? Then you've got the location. So speaking about being at Harvard, Cambridge, Boston, America, right? Especially if you're an international student. So how are those going to really help add to your professional and educational experience, right? So it's about the people that you'll meet, the job opportunities that you'll have, the internships that you'll have, the conferences that you will attend, the innovation labs that you'll be near, really the experiential learning that you will get from being in Cambridge and in Boston and Massachusetts in the United States in general. So that comes into location. Then you've got the academics. So this is where I'll go back again. It's about the centers, the clinics, the concentrations, the courses, the faculty, the electives, the core courses, how they design it, the pedagogy really comes into the academics. And then the personal is if you have a connection to the school, executive education courses, maybe the PLC, which we spoke about, which is that public leader credential, right? Then you've got things like you've taken classes on campus, or that you visited the campus, or that you knew an alum of the campus, or that you attended an informational session or a virtual session, whatever it is that connects you to the school more than the next person, right? And that really creates that bond there, okay? I do say, as a pro tip, make sure to include immediate, medium, and long-term goals and ultimate career goals, and how HKS will supercharge this trajectory. I think that's super important, as in the whole process, because you don't want to kind of say, and in the long term, I want to become president of the country. Kind of talk about the sequence of things. This is crazy, but some of my classmates ran for president. I had a friend who ran for president of Bosnia. I had a friend of mine who ran for president of Iceland. I had two friends and colleagues that ended up being in the U.S. Congress. So folks did that almost within 3 to 5 years after they graduated. I get it, but not everyone's going to be that way, especially if you're doing an MPP or an MPA or an MPID where you're in your 20s and you've got a longer career journey and trajectory. All right. Any questions, guys? Please feel free to ask in the comments. I love questions because it makes this a hell of a lot more interactive and fun for me rather than just kind of going through slides. Let's go through another essay. And I brought this one to the front because it's all degree programs. I did the career goals because, again, it's so critical that you nail this essay because it's going to be such an important part of your application to really figure out what are your career goals and how HCAS is going to get you there. So it's a very important essay. But this one is across all degree programs. It's the only one that this one's across all degree programs. So I'm going to imagine it's going to be extremely important to the school. So here, let's talk about it. Let's read it out. Harvard Kennedy School celebrates and embraces diversity of all kinds. We firmly believe that academic excellence and personal growth rely on exposure to diverse environments, embracing our unique differences and a healthy debate. Please share how you will contribute to the vibrant and diverse learning environment that is HKS. This used to be a much longer question. They give a lot of examples of what diversity is. They got rid of it because they really want you to come up with what you believe diversity to be. Let me rattle out a list just so that you guys know what is expected of diversity in terms of that. So in terms of diversity, it is not just race and religion and national origin, but it's sexual orientation. It's if you were very rich and felt privileged, but you wanted to give back. If you're, socioeconomically in a bad situation and what you were able to achieve and grow from that. It's about a medical tribulation, about a feat you achieved, whether it's a physical feat or a professional feat, like you were an entrepreneur, your company went public. It could be about what they call neurodivergence, whether you have ADHD or autism or what have you, and how you overcame barriers to your life. These are all elements of diversity. Diversity is not just the color of your skin. In fact, I argue that the color of your skin alone is not going to be diversity because it's how and what you did with that race that you are part of. If you're, African American and you lived a life of absolute privilege and influence and glory and what have you, and never really gave back to the community, and then you were Caucasian and lived, in a lot of difficulty and turmoil to kind of get to where you want to go in life, I'm going to say you're describing your diversity as a Caucasian individual, as a white individual, far better than someone who's African American is saying, I live a life of privilege and I don't know what diversity is, really. So you really want to show how, because what it really comes down to, and as I kind of talk about this, is about your vulnerability, about giving back, about being empathetic to other people's backgrounds. The Kennedy School has 60 different nationalities there, right? Over 50% of the school is international. So you want to have, and I can't even tell you how many people, what the percentage of people of color there are. It's a lot. So you want to be in an environment and be ready to give back and engage in healthy debates, especially at a policy school, especially at a political school. So it really, really is important from that perspective. Let's quickly go into the structure. Again, you've got an attention grabber that pulls them in. I talked to you about the client that we recently worked with and talking about how his father used to take him on and his family on international trips and how that opened up his eyes. We spoke about his own background and kind of his own ethnic background and so forth, how he then engaged in diversity and what he did afterwards. So not just the impressions he felt on those trips and how it really shaped him, but what he's done since and how he's given back and helped other people, and then bringing it to the end in terms of a finale, in terms of what he plans to do at the Kennedy School, right? Because that's a very, very important part, because look what the end of the essay says. Please share how you will contribute to the vibrant and diverse learning environment at HKS. Guys, I cannot tell you how many people we've seen their draft essays come to us and they've only really focused on the first part and completely neglected the second part, or focused only on the second part and completely neglected the first part. So you want to make sure it's a strong connection between the two. I would say the first part is probably going to take up about 80% of your essay, and the remainder will be about how you can give back. And how do you give back? You're part of student organizations, you lead student treks, you engage in healthy debates in class, you mentor other students, you engage in community activities, what have you. That really kind of shows how you want to embrace diversity as a student. I also kind of put there as a pro tip, think of intersecting identity. So it's not just about your race. Maybe it's your race and religion. Maybe it's your race and religion and socioeconomic standing. Maybe it's race, religion, socioeconomic standing, and a little bit of neurodivergence if it impacted you, right? So think about Venn diagrams and kind of where you fit in terms of those identities. But don't throw, like I said, the main fallacy here is when you go in there like that client initially did and just threw everything that he felt was his diversity and hoped something stuck. You don't want to do that either. Make sure you are vulnerable, creative, humble, and brave when you write this essay. And I cannot tell you how many clients their initial drafts come to us and they're just very cookie cutter to the point that literally anybody, they could have deleted their name, put somebody else's name, and it still would have worked. And that really goes against the uniqueness test of what this essay is looking for. Okay, I think Yvette sent us a question. I'm in the process of starting, but I don't know the hook exactly. I'm a lawyer, but starting to work in international law. What could I do? So I think, Yvette, you were speaking mostly probably about this question in terms of that. Let me tell you guys, at the end of this, if you hit us up, I will provide you personally, as the founder of the company, I will provide you with a free consultation in terms of speaking with me. Even if you don't get me and you're not the first person to hit us back up and request this, you will still have the opportunity to speak with someone in my company who will be able to provide you with more input on this. But just quickly, because I know this question is a little bit more focused on you, but I think the question is still good because it's asking us about the hook and how do you think about the hook. Think about, like a TED Talk. What would be that main takeaway that would come out? That would be the memorable part of your whole application if that's all they thought about. And for me, I really want to tie what I had done with what I want to do in a way that was so inextricably tied together that they would be like, oh, he is that Iraqi American guy that really wants to do X. And that was kind of like pulling it all together. But the real hook that pulled it together was an experience that I had working in Iraq. And that really kind of would pull everything together. So that hook can't come out of left field and not tied together. The hook has to pull them in and have some kind of connection, commonality that really brings together who you are, what you want to become. So in this case, again, you're a lawyer and you want to work in international law. So you want to be thinking about it. I do want to kind of point out to you, Yvette, a point here, and I'm going to kind of jump back here because I think this is important. This is a question you really want to be asking yourself as well, which is, we covered in the first one, is whether you should apply now or apply later. And in your case, if you just started working international law, you want to really think, is this the right time in terms of your career? If you just started a job, is it better to get a couple of years of work experience in this field and then use that to be able to effectively write your statement versus, in terms of that major career trajectory? And then also, as we talk about here, which is in terms of your optional statement, what we call addendum, or really the optional statement. Here, you can also talk about a major shift in your career. So that will also help you to describe that shift in your career as well, should you decide to apply this year. All right, let's get back to it and let's cover the last essay I want to quickly feature for you guys today. Today, you guys are getting it good. 6 essays. I'm covering 3 of them on this webinar. And then, as I said, we're going to do a massive in-depth dive in the mastery guide, which I hope to finish soon. And there you'll get a much, also an in-depth about the strategy, what the school is looking for, and how to really structure it. So in this case, this question goes for 3 of the master's programs, the MPA, the MPP, and the mid-career program. Is not necessary for the MPAID. Describe a time when you faced adversity or a significant challenge to achieving your goals and how navigating through this shaped your educational and career trajectory. All right. So in this case, what we really want to do is we want to start thinking about describe a time when you face an adversity. So in this case, describe a time when you face an adversity, okay, and a significant, or obviously it's an or, it's not an and, so it's an or, a significant challenge to achieving your goals and how navigating through that shaped your educational or your career trajectory, right? So think about that adversity or that challenge, okay? So you want to start off the essay in the introduction is, what is that adversity you faced, okay? Then second is the experience, how you overcame that challenge. And then the third part is, what was that learning experience? Guys, Do not confuse this with the optional statement, where again, there may be an adversity like you faced that affected your grades. Don't conflate the two. They may be written the same way in terms of there's an adversity, what happened, and what did you learn, but do not confuse the two. Do not overlap the two. Do not talk about like a medical tribulation that you faced that impacted your ability to focus on your academics, and therefore that's why your GPA wasn't good. Leave that for the optional. In this one, maybe focus on another adversity or another challenge. If you don't have another challenge, focus on it. Talk about the medical tribulation, but focus on a different aspect of it, okay? So that you can really let it stand out. Now, if there is a challenge that you face, like let's say you screwed up, there was a failure, and I believe this essay was more about a failure before, and now it's about an adversity or a challenge. But let's say maybe there's a failure on your part, and you have the wherewithal to own up to it. On the good hand, that's great. It shows humility, it shows thought, and so forth. So it's very, very important for you to think through that, right? But on the flip side, don't hyper focus on the challenge in a way, or the failure in a way that also makes you look bad. But talk about how you own it, think through it, what you learned from it, and how you really acted upon it. And that's a great, great way to write this essay. Think about adversity or even a failure and what you learned from it and how you improved on it. So again, the way that you write this, think about the introduction. You want to kind of set it up. That may be like, of the 250 words, maybe like 50 words. Then the experience and what happened, maybe that's about 50% of the essay, or about 125 words, thereabouts. And then finally, the learning experience about, 40%, and what you gained from it, what you learned from it, how it shaped your education or your career trajectory. And I do say as a pro tip, be personal, professional, or it can be, personal, professional, or extracurricular experience. It doesn't have to be any one of those. Specifically in terms of only professional, only personal, you have options, and make sure, again, you're humble, honest, and you are the central figure of the essay. Don't write about how someone else wrote about, something. Think about, in general terms, what that individual or what you did to really kind of overcome that challenge, versus talking about someone else almost like in the third person. All right, guys? So very, very important essay, super, super important. Really kind of talk about it. I'm trying to think of what I spoke about. I think it was about a program that I faced when I did on the professional front, because what I ended up doing is the personal history was more personal. The adversity, I think, made it professional. The perspectives, I think, was personal. The career was obviously more career-oriented. The professional contribution was, again, more career-oriented and professional. So I divided the essays in accordance. And again, guys, when you sit there and you look at these essays, let's kind of look at the essays for the mid-career program, for example, which are right here, easy to monitor. You may say the career goals is going to be a combination of personal and professional. The adversity, you're going to make it, let's say in this case, personal. The optional is personal, obviously, and academic. Let's say there's an academic issue that you face. The personal history about diversity, again, is personal. The perspectives could have been a professional issue that you faced, and like a different, I was not thinking about this in a professional realm. I talked to these individuals who came from a different country. I recognize there's differences in how we speak and how we present ourselves. And I learned a lot from that perspective and changed my perspective in my mind. And then you've got the professional contributions again, which is professional, right? And then, as I said, you have that optional statement, which could also be personal. So you have things that you can divide it up into personal, professional. And then you have volunteer experiences as well as an extracurricular. So maybe the perspectives is a volunteer experience. So maybe you do perspectives as volunteer, professional, volunteer, personal. This one becomes professional if you want. This one is a combination of personal and professional, just to change it up. What I'm basically saying to you is, do not make everything professional or everything personal or everything extracurricular. Spread it out, which is why we tell you, when you develop this and go through the ideating process, just write everything down and then put them each in the right place, right? So that you really kind of showcase different aspects of who you are. And this is the beautiful thing about the Kennedy School. They have provided you so many opportunities in the different essays that you can speak about so many different things. All right, cool. Let's quickly think through, what is story success for us? What does that look like? You want to make sure there's a hook. It's responsive to the question. It's structured properly. There's a proper outline. It's not just a bunch of ideas thrown out there, but there's a structure, a flow. There's an emotional connection, right? That really allows the reader to kind of feel at one with the person that's writing it. It has elements of creativity. It's not just like writing blocks of text, but it is methodical. You've provided detail and examples. In the case of the client that we're working with, and I just was telling you about the personal history, he did a phenomenal job going through and talking about when he used to travel to a specific country. He taps into the 5 senses, right? And what are those 5 senses? You've got sight, sound, you've got taste, you've got touch, and you've got blah. I always forget the last one. Sight, sound, taste, touch, and feeling. Taste, touch, I guess that is feeling. Well, you got 5 senses, and I always forget the 5th one because I always somehow rotate them because that's how our brain functions. But the point is you really want to focus on those senses and provide examples to them. And in this guy's case, he talked about sound, he talked about touch, he talked about the smell, right? That he experienced in those markets, and those really, it brought the whole experience 3D, as if you were there. It was so immersive, right? And then those are the examples, and then you've got the details to kind of really bring those examples to life. So think about this as the checklist. You've got a hook, it's responsive, strong structure, has an emotional connection, it's creative, it provides detailed examples, and it has details in general in terms of those 5 senses. I'm going to think about those. Sound, sight, sound, taste, touch, smell. Boom! I knew there was 3 S's. So those are the different ones right there. All right, cool. What to avoid on the essays. Before we get there, let's quickly answer a question by Anna. I'm an undergraduate student applying to the MPP, MPA. Well, it's actually applying to the MPA program, I would imagine. Do you recommend I wait and continue gathering experiences and still haven't taken the GRE? So in this case, the MPA is not one you could even do because unless you're doing the MPA ID, so that's different. But typically you require 3 years of experience, okay, for MPPs, 3 years of experience for MPIDs, 5 years experience for MPAs, and up to 7 years of experience for mid-career masters. So I can tell you straight off the bat, if you're an undergraduate, chances are you're not going to be admitted because they really, really want people with some kind of experience. That being said, I don't have the statistics. I am sure they accept people who are undergraduates who really showed while they're undergraduates that they have the wherewithal and the ability to excel and experience as undergraduates, whether it's in internships or summer jobs or whatever it is, that they were able to achieve certain kind of like milestones that will allow them to excel in the program. So my advice is unless you have exceptional grades and exceptional GRE, again, if you're applying for the MPID program, and you've got substantial experience through internships and part-time jobs, that you wait at least a year, at least 2 years to apply to the Kennedy School, because it will definitely give you a much, much better chance of admission. All right, now let's quickly jump back into here in terms of what to avoid on your essays. And thanks, Hayes, for always having our backs and checking up. I will change that word for you, my friend, so that you don't feel vexed by the fact that I made a spelling error in my own slides. So that is my bad. What we've got here is some of the things I want you to kind of avoid as you go through the essays. Do not start using words like I want to change the world, because at the end of the day, unless you've really showed how you plan to do it and it makes sense and you've been doing it, it really is not worth it, because it's just a trite comment that is completely overlooked by the school. It just doesn't provide that. But don't let that take away from your passion, because I do want you to be passionate and have lofty dreams, okay? But not just using the same, Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. These trite, these overused quotes, as you will see there, are just not going to be well recognized, and it's just a waste of real estate in your essay, because you have very, very finite terms. Or a word count. You've got rehashing your resume in words. That's not what we want. They don't want you to sit there and rehash it. You can do that for, I believe, the background statement, to kind of rehash it, because that's what the background statement asks for, but not in the essays. Here, you really want to use that story structure that we talked about and talking about specific experiences. Don't go down too hard on divisive topics, because it's really, you have to be very, very careful of how you structure it. It could work, but if you choose a divisive topic and it doesn't work, it can very much backfire and paint you as someone who's intolerant, not open-minded, not someone they really want to have in the class. If it lacks an outline, kind of we talked about how important it is that you have a structure, then that could really hurt you, the structure and the flow of your essay. Duplicating material, we talked about that, where the optional statement is exactly like your adversity statement and they don't change, and that's not going to help you. Wasting words or going over the word limit. The school specifically says, do not go over the word limit. Stay within the word limit, because it's not fair if somebody goes over the word limit and somebody doesn't. And the person who went over the word, who couldn't go over the word limit, was not able to produce an essay as strong as someone who had that extra space. So stick within the word limit, because it also shows that you pay attention to instructions and that you respect the process. Not proofreading is a big, big deal. You want to make sure that you proofread as much as you can to make sure that the essays are in the greatest possible position possible. Irrelevant content, just kind of like talking about certain things and then throwing a red herring at the end of the essay that doesn't flow and jive with the rest of the essay. Why do that? You want to make sure that, like, if you set up something at the start, it also is answered at the end. And then having an impersonal approach, because it's so hard for you to dig deep and be vulnerable. It ends up, the essay becomes so impersonal, kind of like at arm's length. I cannot tell you how many people that we worked with, especially from certain parts of the world, that's really hard for them to dig deep and be personal. And that's why working with us as a company, that's one of the advantages you get, because we're going to really force you to kind of come out of your shell and really expose yourself on paper to be able to get to that story that is unique, that is memorable. Because only when you get personal do you really get to the crux of the school investing their time into it. If it doesn't move you, if it doesn't give you goosebumps, if it doesn't even make you cry or tear up or something in those realms, that it just is emotional and moves you, kind of like what we talked about here, that emotional connection, then I'm going to tell you straight up, if you're not connected to it, you can guarantee the admissions committee is not going to get connected to it. All right? Okay. Let's get quickly to how you get started. The way that you really get started is this way. Ideate. And I talked about this a little bit, alluded to it. You want to brainstorm. So put all your ideas down. Put it on a Word document, like a Google Doc or a Word doc or whatever it is, and free write. Just put everything down there, all your ideas in bullet form, right? Then say, okay, I'm going to take these 3 points and put that in the diversity statement, the personal history. These in the adversity. These in the perspectives. These points in the career essay. This in the professional contribution. This is all going to go into the resume. This one goes into the optional statement. This one goes into, I guess, in the background, in the bio, what have you. So now you have a picture of everything kind of coming together, putting it all out, and then put it which ones are going to be in which essay. Then take any of the essays and put those paragraph headers that we talked about here, right? So introduction, experience, learning lesson, right? Here, the attention grabber, background, engagement, finale. Here, the attention grabber, background, career direction, and educational program. So this is going to basically be your, sorry, I jumped one. So here's going to be kind of the outline, the paragraph headers, and then start tucking the bullet points underneath each one. Then start taking the bullet points and refining them into sentences and into paragraphs. And then finally, perfect it. Make it absolutely beautiful in terms of flow, in terms of syntax, responsiveness, uniqueness, so that the essay comes together beautifully. That's how you start the essay. Ideate, outline, draft, edit. All right? Now, quickly, as a side note, in terms of working with AI, I believe that it's a very useful tool for ideating and outlining. But that's it. Just having ideas, saying, this is an idea I had. What do you think about this? Have that conversation. In fact, I think, what is it called? Not even 4.0. I don't know what the new one's called. There's a new Chat GPT. It's almost like you can talk to it, and it provides you with very, very tactful responses, as if you're talking to an individual to kind of think through ideas. But you can use it to kind of to ideate and outline, but do not use it for drafting and editing. And the reason I say that is, look exactly what the Kennedy School says. All essays must be truthful and based on authentic firsthand experiences without the use of generative AI. That is it, flat out. They are not saying, when you write it, that they say, well, maybe you could. No, they're saying flat out, when you write it, do not use it. We want you to think about it in a truthful, authentic way. I think, as I said, ideating and outlining, having a conversation, thinking through this is a great way of using generative AI, just to think through things, but not to, as I said, to draft, and definitely not to edit, okay? In fact, what you want to do in terms of editing and drafting and reviewing is maybe have 2 to 3 people that can provide you with review and provide you with thoughts, insights into it. I don't think that is illegal. And that you can do through a mentor who knows you well, who knows your career goals well, right? Who can say, yeah, this is authentic, this makes sense. You've got an admissions specialist, someone who knows the admissions process, who can tell you, yes, this would work for a school like HKS. And you've got somebody who's a great writer who can read through and say, this is good, this is bad, the sentence is out of whack, you need to really improve this, and what have you. Obviously, you get all 3 of these for sure in Right Track, because obviously the experts you'll be working with are phenomenal writers. And when I say writers, what we would do is we help you really think through the essays so that you generate the best ideas, the ideating part of the process. We tell you where you should be putting the ideas into which sections. And you would go through and start editing and providing us with drafts, at which point one of our experts would come in and be able to provide you with a micro and macro edits of the essay to make sure that it really stands out and it's perfect, that you guys work in collaboration and so forth. So that's very, very important, that it's really, we empower you to think, we empower you to be brave, creative, and to really write from the heart, so that you are able to really show your best self to the school. All right. Let's quickly jump through this. What you want to do is you want to create something like this so that you have it in place. Again, I'm doing this for the different programs, like we talked about. But here you would just say, okay, did I do that? Did I do the background summary? Yes, complete. Boom, you put that there. This one hasn't been complete. This one hasn't complete, so that you can track the process, so that you don't lose sight of things. I cannot tell you how many clients, or not even clients, how many applicants we found out later on had forgotten to submit the English statement because they needed to have done it, or the optional statement, or the reapplicant statement that they didn't know they needed to do, right? So you want to make sure that all of those are lined up for your profile in terms of what applies to you, and then that you can start checking them off when you've done them. So make sure to track it. Again, at Right Track, we use a project management tool. So we monitor all of that. We set deadlines, reminders, and all of that, so that you don't miss a single document that you need to submit and then get into trouble and get denied because of an oversight. All right. Submissions best practices. Make sure that all your application materials are up to date, especially for the reapplicants, because you want to make sure they're up to date before you submit them. All right. And then you have, your recommenders are up to date. Your application materials, you're not submitting draft 1 or draft 2, but the final drafts, right? Make sure all the requirements are complete. We talked about this in terms of this tracker, so you now know that all the requirements for you are complete, right? And that's why I say create that spreadsheet and just check them off as they get complete. Proofread everything multiple times. Read it out loud. I think that's one of the best ways to do it. If you're doing it in track changes, hide the track changes and then read the essay out loud so that you can make sure that there's no errors. Submit well before the deadline, if you can. That always is important. So, in this case, the deadline is December 3rd. So we say definitely by November 27th, you want to have it in. I think with my application, I had it submitted by mid-November. Most clients that we work with, we aim to have everything submitted by mid-November so that there's no issues there. Follow up after it's submitted. Now, obviously on the online portal, you'll see where everything's been checked off and complete. So you'll know what's been submitted and what hasn't. And you'll get the green marks next to each one, which is a great service that the Kennedy School provides. But just follow up in case, especially, let's say you needed to get your transcripts translated and you weren't sure that if they got translated in time. All the recommenders got submitted in time. All your test scores got submitted in time if you have to take the standardized test. So just make sure all of that's submitted so that there's no errors. And then stay active. Keep staying active in the way that, if you get promoted, make sure if you're, up for a promotion, don't just kind of give up because you've already submitted the application. Go through with it, right? If you volunteer, continue your volunteering. If you're going to take a course, make sure that you complete it and get a grade, because you can always submit those to the school even after you've submitted your application. Just say, hey, listen, since I've submitted my application, these are some things I've done, just FYI. They may have already read your application. You may have already been denied or accepted. I don't know. But it's important to stay active, because if you are waitlisted, and sometimes the Kennedy School waitlists folks, this is a good opportunity to try to get off the waitlist. Okay. So those are just some best practice to think about with the submission process. And here is a quick overview of the timeline. All right. Oh, actually, we have a question here. Do you have a timeline suggesting on when we need to start the process, when we need to submit? Well, this is an official timeline, but I would say you start yesterday, right? And you have everything, as I said, complete by mid-November. Truly, because you don't want to wait till December and then quickly scramble, and then their system crashes, or you can't upload it and you miss the deadline and the school won't forgive you. They do provide opportunities for extenuating circumstances, but that's like if your country's in war and you weren't able to upload or something, then you have to submit it and they review it on a case-by-case basis. But not if for something foolish like you dragging the process out and not submitting it in time. So the financial applications available to applicants in November 2024. So you start seeing what the essays are for the different programs, as well as, obviously, as we said, the program essays themselves are all available. Definitely now you can see them. December 3rd is the application deadline, I believe by 11:59 a.m. I want to say East Coast time. Fellowship application deadline is around early January 2025, but also just it's financial aid. Admissions and fellowship decision announcements. When I was applying, we got admitted, and then they told us, hey, this fellowship wants to interview you. Then in April, we got the decision of the fellowship. So then by April, we knew if we got funded or we didn't. They've changed that up. What they want to do is submit to you one complete package. So the idea is that you submit in January, your fellowship packet. Then in February, they tell you, hey, you got an interview. You interview with that fellowship, at the Center for Public Leadership, as an example. And then when they say you've been admitted, they tell you you've been admitted with what financial aid that you will be receiving. And that was helping the school better keep track of those who didn't wait to accept, but would accept immediately because they knew what their financial situation is going to be. And then finally, in April 2025 is when you will be giving your decision and responding to whether you're going to accept or defer or deny. And deferment, really, you have to have an extenuating circumstance to show deferment, and the school reserves the right at their discretion whether to accept your deferment or ask you to reapply next year. If you got financial aid and you get deferred, there's a high likelihood, I'm almost sure, the double check, that the fellowship will not hold its position for you, that you will most likely have to reapply, which makes 100% sense because they don't know what the incoming class next year is going to be like. There may be somebody who's more deserving than you, and therefore they can't just hold it for you indefinitely. That's what they encourage you. If you do apply, you come this year, unless you have an extenuating circumstance. But I guess, again, it's a case-by-case basis. All right. Last but not least, I want to quickly tell you how to maximize your experience at the Kennedy School. Guys, I've spent so much time focusing on this. Indulge me as I go through this process. Very, very important. While I was at the Kennedy School, there were certain things that really, really allowed me to maximize my time. I want to share those with you, and certain regrets I have that I wish I could have done better. What I want to tell you is when you enter the Kennedy School, it's always important to have a plan and figure out how the Kennedy School really will allow you to maximize that plan in terms of the classes you take and what you do. So just think about that. You enter the Kennedy School, you have a plan of what you want to do afterwards. You talked about it in your career goals essay, right? Use this to really be able to maximize that plan, okay? Let's go through it one by one, all right? Find a mentor, typically a faculty mentor, because they're the ones who are going to be able to guide you and provide you with, certain things that may be blind spots to you. And they'll be with you not just during your time at Harvard, but afterwards, someone you can always touch base with. I think about a lot of friends of mine who found a good faculty mentor, and then they ended up TAing for them, like teaching for them. They ended up investing in their enterprises. They ended up being on their board of advisors. So it's a really great opportunity. Now, this is authentic. If you can't find one, it's not the end of the world, but it is something that you should focus on if you can. I, for example, did not have a specific faculty mentor, and I do regret it. I kind of wish I did, but I didn't have the opportunity to do that. I couldn't find someone I really gelled with to do that, but a lot of other friends of mine did. Affiliate with a center. I was affiliated with the Center for Public Leadership. Later on, I was also affiliated with the Ash Center. But by affiliating with a center, you get all their benefits, you get resources, you get opportunities to go into different workshops, different speaker series. It's such a great thing that you can do. And then afterwards, when you graduate, I know a lot of people have done this, including myself. You continue your affiliation with a center or with the center that you were part of at the school, and you can publish papers. You can do all kinds of things. And it's actually a shortcut, because if you don't get a job, if you're kind of in between things, it's a great opportunity to publish papers and do certain work to keep your resume active, which then leads me to publish. One of the most important factors as a student is that you want to kind of brand yourself. That kind of comes down to that idea of what you want to do. So by publishing, and I published on, at the time it was called the Kennedy Review, I believe, the Kennedy Review. And now I believe it's called the Student Policy Review, the journal there. And I published, I think, 2 or 3 times while I was there. A, improved my writing. B, I was able to get my name out there, which then allows you to use it as a calling card when you are trying to get job opportunities and so forth. Okay, so publishing, and also I was able to publish at the center. Then there's future proofing, where you are able to get yourself in a position where you're not deemed redundant, you're not becoming obsolete because of AI, and that your career path is going to be more secure, and that you're not going to end up jobless. So always think about whatever path you take, you want to future-proof that. And one of the strongest and best ways to future-proof is through strong communication skills. So which I love public speaking, as you guys hopefully can tell, really focused on taking classes in, I think the art of communication was one of the classes I took. I took a seminar on publishing and writing op-eds. And any chance I had, I did a talk at the Kennedy School, kind of like a TED Talk as well, which we can share with you. As well, you can find it online by just typing my name in HKS. So I really wanted to focus on those communication skills, because I really believe that is one thing that AI cannot take away from us, is our ability as people to communicate and connect. Attend or organize a conference. I was involved in that. There's a lot of those. You can go under, just type in HKS student activities or student-led conferences, and you'll see all kinds of conferences that you can be part of or lead. Join or lead a student trek. I was part of a student trek, service trek as they called it. And we went to the island of Lesbos in Greece to be part of that. And what you do there is you really kind of connect, not just be part of an international experience, but the people on that trek become very close friends of yours. And afterwards, I also went, I think while I was at the Kennedy School, I went to Dubai as well with this group of students. Oh, I was at a conference and I attended a conference while I was at the Kennedy School, which was called the Global Government Summit, or the World Government Summit, which was really, really cool. And we actually even did a presentation there and won that award for the Kennedy School, which was awesome. And that speech is online as well in Dubai. But it allows you to connect with folks there. After I graduated, I was also part of a trek that went to Bhutan, Nigeria, Pakistan. So there's just such opportunities that you can learn from those student treks, very experiential. I also joined a student group. It was called the government, I think the government and PPP. So it was private public partnerships, government PIC, or a public interest group. So I was very much involved in there. I took a leadership role within that. I also took a leadership role within an identity group on campus. So I was very, very involved on campus, because I was super, super involved, which leads me to kind of say, stay social, constantly be around people, learn from people, be humble, listen, go out for coffees, because it's so important that you walk away with a very strong network, which was very, very important to me. Maximize experiential and launchpad courses, which are classes where you kind of learn with people, that you do study groups together. I think there was a class I took about why countries are poor, in turmoil, or something to that effect, which really was great, because I worked with 3 or 4 other people to produce a country report that was very, very insightful and created a very strong connection with me and those students. So take courses where you're not just kind of focused on yourself, but working together with other people. And that you can, another class I took was on operations management, where we actually worked with a company that needed support in terms of creating efficiencies. And that concept that I learned, I ended up getting later on a certificate in operations and project management. And I use that all the time for Right Track and for other initiatives that I'm part of. Finally, I want to end it with uphold your reputation and integrity. So fundamentally important, because you walk away with a degree, you walk away with an experience, but you also walk away with your reputation. And people, if you are flaky, if you are an opportunist, if you are someone who's just not a good actor, it will come back to haunt you, because nobody will refer you, and people actually will potentially undermine your ability to succeed. So you want to be able to really be a good person, uphold your integrity and reputation, and don't be someone who's bad, who doesn't help others, who doesn't kind of get involved in things, somebody who's flaky and not dependable. Super important. I can't even tell you how important that was, because I saw people really excel and really destroy their experience at Harvard and afterwards. All right, who we are, I'll quickly tell you. Again, we use a GSET framework, which is guiding, much like I'm doing right now, and that mastery guide will help you out with that as well. God willing, we finish that and we get it out. The story crafting, which we talked about, discovering your story and helping people really find that unique story that allows you to stand out across your different essays. Editing to perfect the essays and the essay process themselves after you draft it, so that we can make sure that they are the best possible application that will really accelerate your chances of admission. And then timekeeping. We told you about all those deadlines and that December 3rd deadline that creeps up. So we want to make sure that you have everything kind of locked and loaded, and not so you don't stress out through the process, and that we monitor everything. All right. Just quickly, this is an example of the realities. Someone who was very confused about their career goals and how Kennedy School fit into it, how we kind of mapped out their profile and thought about the best path forward, how we then provided with the guidance on one-on-one through our comprehensive application support services, and then the results that they were admitted. Something else I want to quickly show you. Last year, we worked with a whole cohort of individuals, and we increased the admissions from on average 2 or 3 to literally near 8 or 10 that were accepted that year. And then you've got the person's testimonial down there. Something we're so proud of, which was why we're so confident in our ability to really be able to provide you with the guidance you need to get into a school as incredible as the Kennedy School. There I am doing one of the workshops that I did out there. Again, the team, absolutely incredible team that we have. They are, some of them have attended the Kennedy School themselves. Some of them have gone to Harvard. All of them have done graduate degrees. So these guys are really locked and loaded and ready to really provide you with outstanding services to get you into the Kennedy School and other policy programs out there that you may be considering. Okay. Again, you've got the December deadline, 11:59 a.m. Eastern time. I believe that gives us literally 60-something days before the deadline is coming. So make sure that you are proactive, that you're on top of it. That's our email. That's our telephone number. The first person who hits us up with an email will get a free consultation by yours truly. I'll be more than happy to do that for you. And then anyone else who doesn't fit that, no worries at all. We will do what we can to help you through the process. Especially for the application support services, what we talked about right here in terms of that whole process. All right, thank you so much. I know we're at time, exactly at time. So thank you for that. I really hope that was insightful. I'm wearing my sweater to kind of manifest and help you get into your top dream program of the Kennedy School. We've got a landing page with a lot of information there, so make sure to check it out. My colleague just posted it there. Again, thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. And we look forward to working with you and getting you into the Harvard Kennedy School.